Today we're taking a look at Halawet El Jibn, a soft and luscious dessert from Syria and Lebanon. These small dessert parcels are made using a unique cheese and semolina dough, which gives them a soft and pillowy texture. They contain a rich cream filling and are flavoured with orange blossom or rose. It's widely consumed all year round, but it's even more popular to have on hand during the month of Ramadan. If you're new here, I'm Obi. I'm 12% cheese and I want to get you cooking amazing Middle Eastern food at home. I've only had Halawet El Jibn a few times, but each one has been a really memorable experience. It's like a miniature Swiss roll, but with a moist dough and satisfying mouthfeel. This is one of those desserts you really don't want to miss, so let's get right to it. To start, we'll make some Ashta, which is the filling at the centre of these sweet parcels. Traditional Ashta is clotted cream, and it's used in Middle Eastern cuisine to help balance the sweetness of desserts. You'd need a lot of it for this recipe, so instead we're going to be making some cheat Ashta, which will give us the same effect and a great texture. We'll be making this from milk and cream, so to stabilise our mixture we'll make a thickening slurry. Start by adding 30 grams or 4 tablespoons of all-purpose flour to a bowl, as well as 35 grams or 4 tablespoons of corn flour. Next, pour in 150 milliliters or 5 fluid ounces of whole milk, and then whisk everything together. Try to get all of the flour and cornstarch well integrated into the milk, and I'd recommend pressing a spoon against the side of the bowl to break up any clumps. Now on the stove, place a pot over medium-high heat, and add in a further 200 milliliters or 6 3/4 fluid ounces of whole milk. Follow that up with 400 milliliters or 13.5 fluid ounces of heavy cream. Add in the slurry, which should now have a smooth consistency. And the final two ingredients are 8 grams or 2 teaspoons of sugar and a pinch of salt. Mix this together continuously without stopping, and it should thicken up. After about 5 to 8 minutes of mixing, it will get to the consistency of a thick bechamel, and it's at this point you should remove it from the heat and place in a bowl. Allow it to chill in your fridge for about 4 to 6 hours until it has completely cooled. With that done, we'll make some syrup to sweeten the dessert. Start by placing 130 milliliters or 4.4 fluid ounces of water in a pot over a high heat. Add in 200 grams or 7 ounces of sugar, as well as the strained juice of half a lemon. Let this come up to a full boil, and don't stir the pot as it can cause the syrup to crystallize. When it looks like this, turn the heat down to low and let it simmer for 15 minutes. When the time is up, the syrup will have reduced and thickened. Now you can flavour this with 1 teaspoon of essence, and I use the traditional choice of orange blossom water. Let this cook for 1 minute further and then pour it out from the pot. Allow the syrup to cool completely for at least 1 hour before using. Next up is the unique cheese dough. To make it, a specific kind of cheese called arkewi is usually used, but today I'll be using low moisture mozzarella, which produces a fantastic result. Make sure that what you're buying is not fresh mozzarella, you'll need the hard kind instead. You can usually get this shredded from your grocery store, but be sure to check the ingredients as it can't have added starches. If yours has potato starch in it like this one, then it might mess up the dough, so you're better off buying it in block form. I took 250 grams or 8.8 ounces of the mozzarella block and shredded it on a grater like so. When done, I was left with a pile of pure mozzarella without any additional starch. Apart from the cheese, you'll also need some semolina for the dough. This can come in many sizes from coarse to extra fine, and for the purpose of this recipe you'll need fine semolina. If you can't get it, the recipe will still work, but the dough will have a grittier texture the more coarse you go. To start the dough, place a pot over medium heat and add in 250 milliliters or 8.5 fluid ounces of whole milk. Follow that up with 50 grams or 1 3/4 ounces of sugar and stir the two together. Next, add in 90 grams or 3.1 ounces of fine semolina and work it into the milk mixture. Keep stirring the pot, and after about 30 seconds it will start to thicken. When it's completely turned into a paste and you can see the bottom of the pot, add in the shredded mozzarella cheese. Finally, add in 1 teaspoon of orange blossom water or your flavouring of choice, and stir, stir, stir. The cheese will quickly melt and you'll start to have a stretchy ball of dough. Keep folding the dough over itself for a few minutes until all the cheese has fully melted, and it should be a single uniform colour. You can test the dough by stretching it upwards, and if it can stretch high without breaking and has a soft pillowy texture, then it's ready to be used. Add about 1 to 2 tablespoons of the syrup we made earlier to a chopping board. Then remove the hot dough from the pot and place it directly on the syrup. Wash your hands thoroughly and then work the syrup into the dough by repeatedly folding it over itself. When it has all been worked in, split the dough in half and set one piece aside. Now take a sheet of plastic wrap and lay it across your chopping board. Pour 1 tablespoon of the syrup onto the plastic and spread it out into a thin, even layer. This will stop the dough from sticking to the plastic as it cools. Place the dough on the plastic and spread it out with your hands into a rough rectangular shape. Pour a little more syrup onto the dough and spread it all over until fully coated. Then take another piece of plastic wrap and cover the dough and entire board like before. Now you can use a rolling pin to roll the dough out into a rectangle. It's important here that you get the dough to a uniform thickness, and 2mm or just under 1/8 of an inch thick across the whole surface should be your target. Once it has been fully rolled out, remove the plastic and use a knife to trim the dough into a sharp rectangle. Remove any excess and you should have a perfect rectangular sheet like so. Before you can assemble, remove the Ashta from the fridge and it will probably be quite solid. Use an immersion blender or a whisk to fluff it up into a creamy consistency. It will take a couple of minutes and when you're done it will look like whipped cream. Take a piping bag or a regular sandwich bag and fill it up with the Ashta. Squeeze out any trapped air and then cut an opening about 1¼ centimeter or ½ inch wide. Now quickly go back to the rolled dough and begin piping out your Ashta in a straight line. Leave a small gap from the edge of the dough and then applying constant pressure on the bag, squeeze the filling from edge to edge into a uniform line. If you get any thicker bits, just use a knife to trim them. When you have something that looks like this, you can roll the dough. Using the plastic, lift the edge of the dough over the filling and roll it to the other side. Peel back the plastic, then complete the roll until you have the slightest bit of overlapping dough. Use a knife to cut the roll from the sheet and then using the plastic beneath it, roll it up tightly and set aside. That's your first Halawet El Jibn roll. Do the same thing with the rest of the sheet and your second piece of dough before they cool. When you've made as many rolls as you can, trim off most of the excess plastic and roll them on your chopping board to get them to a uniform thickness. Place them in the fridge seam side down and allow them to chill for at least 4 to 6 hours before serving. To plate, remove the rolls from the fridge about half an hour before serving and remove the plastic wrap. Using a sharp knife, slice the end section off of your roll and then cut it into equal sized pieces. It helps to use a ruler here and I would recommend 1¼ inches or 3 cm wide sections. And you can also wipe your knife between each piece to get a cleaner cut. Each roll yielded me about 7 pieces and I made 5 to 6 rolls with this recipe, which was about 35 pieces. To decorate, I'll be using ground Antep pistachios, which have a vibrant green colour. I placed a small amount across each piece and then topped them with dried rose petals. Another way you can decorate these is by rolling them in the crushed pistachio. The pistachio will cling to the soft dough and you'll be left with pieces with a beautiful green exterior. Plate these up with some of the regular ones for a vibrant contrast, and don't forget to serve them with plenty of the syrup. These bite-sized parcels make for a satisfyingly chewy treat. They have a creamy and soft texture as well as a delicate floral flavour. They're well suited to springtime and unlike most Middle Eastern desserts, they're actually quite light. I hope you give them a try and let me know how you find it. Thank you for watching and be sure to click the like, share and subscribe buttons to help us with the YouTube algorithm. If you make this, be sure to send us some photos on Instagram. As always, thanks to our Patreon supporters for making this video possible. If you like the recipe and want to help us make more like this, then consider becoming a patron. The link and recipe are in the description box down below, and I'll be back next week with another recipe.